This is chapter number 3. What is government? We are discussing about what is government. So this word you might have heard about, government. Various times you will see it in newspaper and in television channels. So in this discussion we'll talk about what government is and what is the importance of government in our lives. What is expected out of government, how they decide what to do, what is the difference between different type of governments like the monarchies and democracies, etc. So these are some cuttings, like government sought to protect right of unorganized workers, detailed plan to tackle floods soon, say government. So this is how government will see about them, what work is, or how we elect them, or how they become the facility provider. Like the Supreme Court can have 5 more judges, this government has said. Over 15,000 villages declared scarcity, hit by government. Government for revamping, or government is revamping coal and power sector. So every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done. Like in your family, you have your grandfather or a father. So they are more experienced, they have power, they have money, and now they can decide for us who like I am a child and I'm just taking classes. I cannot decide on my own, so I need someone in my family. Similarly, when we talk about a country, we need government. So these can be decisions about where to build roads and schools, or how to reduce the price of onions when they get too expensive, or the tomatoes, or ways to increase the supply of electricity. So the government also takes action on many social issues. For instance, it launches several programs to help the poor. It does other things such as running postal and railway services. So the government also has the main job to protect the boundaries of the country, that is national security, and maintaining peaceful relationship with other countries. And it is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and they are having good health facilities. So when there are natural disasters like the tsunami or earthquake, it is government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. So if there is a dispute, or if someone has committed a crime, you find people in court, and courts are a part of government only. You may be wondering how government manages to do all these things and why it is necessary for them to do. When human beings live and work together, there needs to be some amount of organization, planning, so that decisions can be made, right? So some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For instance, there is a need to control the resources and protect the territory of the country so people feel secure. Governments do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions and implementing these among all the people living in their territory. This is the Supreme Court. These are some example of the institutions that are part of government. This is the Supreme Court. This is Indian Railways. This is Bharat Petroleum. So what are the levels of government? Now, well, you are aware of the government which we just talked about. Now, you know that the government is responsible for the different aspects, different things. So how do the government is responsible, or how does it manage? So the government work at different levels. At the local level, at the level of the state, and the national level. So the local level means in your village, your town, or locality. The state level would mean that which covers the entire state. Like say, we have 29 states, and each state you can take. Like Haryana and Assam, and the national level relates to the entire country, the whole country, the federal word you can use. We will talk about how local level government functions, and how you go into the next few discussions that how government will function at the state level and central level. So this is the national level. Delhi is our capital, so you'll find the government mainly, in this location. Means we have parliament here, we have various ministries here. The people or the elected ministers sit here in our country because our country is democracy. And these are the state level. We have 29 state and various these 7 union territories. So these union territories means they are governed by the center, that is national level, but means from the central government. And others have their own, people choose their, elect their state level government also. Means state level, they choose the vidhayaks or legislators, member of legislative assembly, and then these members choose a chief minister. The way there is a prime minister. The laws, rules, and the government. So government makes laws, and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. And this is the only way government can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, it has the power to enforce these decisions as well. For instance, there is a law that says that all person driving a motor vehicle must have a license, DL, driving license. So any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined a large sum of money. So without these laws, the government's power to make decision is not of much use. You can think of an example of another law. What do you think? It is important that people abide by this law? We'll talk about these when we are doing the question answers. We'll answer this. So in addition to any actions that government can take, there are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they are not hired for a job because of their religion and caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that law is not being followed or enforced. So the court can then give orders about what should be done on the basis of the law. So what are the type of government? Who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce law? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there you have in your country. So in a democracy like we have in India, it is the people who give the government this power. They do this through elections in which they vote for a particular person and they elect them. So once elected, these persons, they form the government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its action and defend its decision to the people. So they are answerable to people. People can ask, they have to answer them. So another form of government is monarchy. Monarchy, that is, you have a monarch, say king or queen. Monarch has the power to make decisions and run the government. The monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters, but the final decision making power remains with the monarch itself, which is not possible in democracy. King and queen do not have to explain their actions or defend their actions they take because they are not being elected by people. So this is an example of person showing example or figure showing the monarch. So again, these questions we are going to do when we'll talk about the question answers of this topic. The democratic government. As I said, India is a democracy. So this achievement is the result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. So there are other places in the world where people also have struggled to have democracies. The main feature of a democracy is that the people have the power to elect their leaders. So in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in making of these rules. So democratic government in our times are usually referred to as representative democracy. In representative democracy, people do not participate directly, but instead they choose their representative through an election process. So before I go ahead, now, or you can say nowhere in the world have government willingly shared power. All over Europe and USA, women and poor have had to fight for participation in the government's women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. So this movement is called women suffrage movement, as the term suffrage usually means right to vote. So during the war, many women Many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work. So many women began organizing and managing different kind of work. So when people saw that this, they began to wonder why they had created a many unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. They can do everything. So women began to be seen be equally capable of making decisions. So the you can say suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get their demands heard, they chained themselves to railings in public places. So many suffragettes were imprisoned and went to hunger strike, and they had to be fed by the force. So American women got the right to vote in 1920, while women in UK got the vote or got to vote on the same terms as men some years later, that is 1928. So we were talking about the democracy. We have selected we have chosen or elected the representative. Now these representative, they meet and make decision for the entire population. This is the voting picture in rural area. A mark is put on a finger to make sure that the person cast only one vote. So these days, a government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows that it is known as a universal adult franchise. This means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote. In India, 18 plus, you are 18 plus, you are allowed to vote. So, but it was not always like this, you know. Can you ever believe that there was a time when government did not allow women and poor to participate in the elections? In their earliest forms, government allowed only men and who owned property and were educated to vote. This meant that women, the poor, the propertyless, and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by the rules and regulations that these few men would make. So in India, before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. So several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. And this is known as universal adult franchise. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji said, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should get the vote, but a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who honestly works by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being a poor man." So these were the discussion of this topic, but we will be taking more in detail in later discussion. Till then, thank you so much and take care of yourself.